Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic. Native Japanese people of Reddit, what do you think about Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombing? It's a really conflicting feeling. For the longest time, I felt there was no justifying the bombings. The bombings really helped to paint the country as a victim of war when being taught in Japanese history classes, and of course no one, including myself, would question it. It's only when you learn about the other side of the coin and hear about the atrocities that are hidden in Japanese education such as Nanjing and comfort women that you realize that Japan isn't in the clear. To this day, I still do not like the fact that my country still go to lengths to forget about their own wrongdoings. In the end, war itself is tragic. The bombings caused a lot of Japanese people to suffer, but we aren't the only victims of war. Although I come from a Japanese family, I see other tragedies such as the Holocaust in the same light. As I personally didn't suffer from war, I cannot say my way of thinking is correct. I still shiver when I think about Unit 731. The US gave clemency to the scientists involved in it in exchange for the information gained from the torture/human experimentation. https://m.wikipedia.org/wiki/unit_731. Excerpt. The Americans did not try the researchers so that the information and experience gained in bioweapons could be co-opted into their biological warfare program, much as they had done with German researchers in Operation Paperclip. 7. On May 6, 1947, Douglas MacArthur, as Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces, wrote to Washington that additional data, possibly some statements from Ishii, can probably be obtained by informing Japanese involved that information will be retained in intelligence channels and will not be employed as war crimes evidence. 6. Victim accounts were then largely ignored or dismissed in the West as communist propaganda. 8. They also did the same for the Nazis and brought over 1,600 Nazis over to the US to work as scientists. https://m.wikipedia.org/wiki/operation_paperclip. Coincidentally, the Khmer Rouge, Cambodia, were also supported by the US by proxy against Vietnam, which was a Soviet ally. https://gsp.yale.edu/case-studies, and also engaged in similar human experimentation. https://english.cambodiadaily.com/news. The CIA engaged in horrendous human experimentation within the US. https://www.usweek.com. Excerpt. Project MKUltra was an illegal program of human experimentation undertaken by the CIA to discover methods, both pharmacological and psychological, for controlling the human mind, particularly in interrogation settings. Amphetamines, MDMA, scopolamine, cannabis, salvia, sodium pentothal, psilocybe and LSD were administered to thousands of unsuspecting people, throughout the United States and Canada. Others were subject to sensory deprivation, psychological abuse and rape, including the sexual abuse of children. They have continued various forms of torture and human experimentation at black sites abroad. https://www.thejuedia.com/us/news/2015/jun/15. Excerpt. But other physicians and human rights experts who have long criticized the role of medical staff in torture said the extensive notes from CIA doctors on the interrogations as they unfolded brought OMS, CIA's medical division, into the realm of human experimentation, particularly as they helped blur the lines between providing medical aid to detainees and keeping them capable of enduring further abusive interrogations. Doctors take oaths to guarantee they inflict no harm on their patients. Tubada seems very resistant to the waterboard, an OMS official emailed in August 2002. No useful information so far. He did vomit a couple of times during the waterboard with some beans and rice. It's been 10 hours since he ate, so this is surprising and disturbing. We plan to only feed Ensure for a while now. I'm heading back for another waterboard session. They also conducted experiments involving radiation on random people and staged a cover-up. https://www.qcc.qe.edu/socialchiekis/medical_ethics_text. Excerpt. In 1947, doctors injected plutonium into the left leg of Elmer Allen, a 36-year-old African-American railroad porter. 3 days later, the leg was amputated for a supposed pre-existing bone cancer. Researchers analyzed tissue samples to determine the physiology of plutonium dispersion. *15 In 1973, scientists summoned Allen to the Argonne National Laboratory near Chicago, where he was subjected to a follow-up whole-body radiation scan, and his urine was analyzed to ascertain lingering levels of plutonium from the 1947 injection. Excerpt from 1960 to 71. In experiments which may have caused the most deaths and spanned the most years, Drive. Eugene Seeger, a radiologist at the University of Cincinnati, exposed 88 cancer patients to whole-body radiation. Many of the guinea pigs were poor African Americans at Cincinnati General Hospital with inoperable tumors. All but one of the 88 patients have since died. 20. There is evidence that scientists forged signatures on the consent forms for the Cincinnati experiments. Gloria Nelson testified before the House that her grandmother, Amelia Jackson, had been strong and still working before she was treated by Drive. Seeger. Following exposure to 100 rads of whole-body radiation, about 7,500 chest X-rays, Amelia Jackson bled and vomited for days and became permanently disabled. Jackson testified that the signature on her grandmother's consent form was forged. 21. They radiated thousands of people. Excerpt. During the December 1949 Green Run test at the Hanford, Washington, nuclear reservation, the AEC loosed thousands of curies of radioactive iodine-131, several times the amount released from the 1979 Three Mile Island disaster, into the atmosphere simply to test its recently installed radiological monitoring equipment. Passing over Spokane and reaching as far as the California-Oregon border, Green Run irradiated thousands of downwinders, as civilians exposed to the effects of airborne radiation tests are known, and contaminated an enormous swath of cattle grazing and dairy land. *26 A team of epidemiologists is now looking into an epidemic of late-occurring thyroid tumors and other radioic disorders among the downwind residents in eastern Washington state. They deliberately sprayed carcinogens on 2 populated Canadian regions, with several 100,000 people affected. https://allpost.com/news/Canada. I'm native Japanese, born and raised in Japan. As some of those fellow Japanese already mentioned, in Japanese education system the majority of focus is that we are the victim of the World War II, and I did believe that for the longest time. I've been to the museum in Hiroshima and it's simply painful to see those images of people who were bombed. I never wish that to my worst enemy, and nuclear weapons should be terminated from this world. But having said that, the US government did not have a better understanding of long-lasting effect of nuclear weapons to begin with, and Japanese have even invading those neighbor countries and doing horrendous acts in such place China, Korea, and other southeastern countries. Massacre and recruitment of comfort women is simply not acceptable and intolerable. It's extremely infuriating that many Japanese media or politicians dismissed those acts, especially comfort women, as something like every country did that or it was a good paying job back then. I'm looking at you, Hashimoto. It saddens me to learn many Japanese friends of mine perceive this era of Japan is just a victim and don't know too much about other historical contexts, but at the same time, many of them don't speak or read in English or other language, so it's difficult for them to be exposed to outside view. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I did appreciate that Obama paid a visit there during his presidency. After all, many people died because of the bomb, and many people, especially from Hiroshima, still struggle with certain health issues. So long story short, I'm feeling very conflicted. Edit. Sorry, I didn't expect this to blow up this much. Sorry if I didn't respond to your comments. Edit. Okay, first edit was 100% unintentional. Thank you for pointing it out. How do people in Japan think about Obama's visit? Do they think it was good and peaceful, or do they think it was bad, or rude, or something? I agree with you. Lots of people criticized Obama's visit, but I don't see the harm. They thought he was going there to apologize for the USA's actions, but he didn't. His message was, let's not forget this, and let's never do it again. I don't think any sane person can disagree with that. Growing up in the USA, there are some people, not many, but some, who think that the dropping of the bombs is something to be proud of, celebrated, and is a source of national pride. It's really not. It was a horrible tragedy. Perhaps one that was necessary to avoid even more deaths, but still horrible. We should never forget it, nor should we ever repeat it. If I remember correctly, I think it was overall very positive. He was very polite and respectful during the visit, too. And Japanese people are very aware it's not an apology visit. I definitely agree. It's extremely important to recognize our collective doing as a nation in the past and not repeating the same thing. Yeah, to be completely honest with you, it does give me mixed feelings when some American people are extremely proud of the bombing too, haha. Thanks for the insightful response. On the flip side, I lived in Hawaii for a long time and there is a lot of pain and sadness at Pearl Harbor. Hawaii is mostly Asian with a huge population being ethnically Japanese or mixed. Many other people immigrated to Hawaii during/after World War II, and so the ethnic Koreans and Vietnamese and Chinese all have horror stories about Japan and why they live in Hawaii now, and World War II is taught through the Asian lens there, not the Eurocentric lens like on mainland. In mainland, it's breezed over like Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, then seemingly disappeared from World War II, until we dropped bombs, but in Hawaii it's taught mostly focused on Japan and why they deserved it, and the Nazis are the ones breezed over a bit. It is taught in a way not to make anyone feel personally responsible, as Hawaii is very very Japanese. But everyone knows what happened and why. But there's always Japanese tourists at Pearl Harbor who don't seem to understand the history, so they go visit and don't seem to consider why their happy smiling pictures at a memorial for their sucker-pooch is considered distasteful. I would never go throw up some happy kawaii hand signs at Hiroshima. Makes sense reading some Redditors explaining they are taught they were the victims. Yeah, number.